Most people think intelligence work begins with danger. It doesn't. It begins with a question. You're alone at night. Laptop open. Cursor blinking against a white screen. The application looks ordinary at first. Employment history, education, travel languages. Then the tone shifts. Have you ever knowingly violated a law? Have you ever concealed information from someone close to you? Have you ever struggled financially in a way that changed your behavior? You realize this isn't about credentials. It's about leverage. It's about understanding who you are when no one is watching. You scroll slower now. You know, if they call, the life you recognize will begin to change. You click submit. Weeks pass. Nothing happens. Life feels normal again. Until the email arrives. No dramatic subject line. Just a date, a time, an address in Virginia. The building looks forgettable. Beige walls, neutral carpet. Fluorescent lights that hum faintly. Inside, the interview lasts 4 hours. They ask about your childhood, about your conflicts, about your worst decisions. They don't react, they observe. You begin to understand something unsettling. They aren't evaluating what you've done. They're evaluating what you're capable of under pressure. Then comes the polygraph. The machine doesn't matter. The silence does. Your breathing feels loud. The questions feel surgical, not accusatory precise. You leave unsure how you performed. Weeks later, a letter arrives. You've been accepted. Pride hits first, then curiosity, then something quieter. A feeling that you just stepped onto a path you cannot casually exit. Because this career won't test your strength, it will test your ability to divide yourself. And once you learn how to split cleanly, you never fully return to one piece. Chapter 1. The farm training begins without ceremony. No dramatic oath. No patriotic music. Just discipline. 5 a.m. wake-ups. Physical conditioning before sunrise. Classrooms filled with maps, history, and geopolitical case studies. You study intelligence failures more than successes. Because failure teaches patterns. You learn surveillance detection. At first, you miss obvious signs. The same car twice. The same face in 2 different places. The subtle delay in someone's reaction time. Instructors replay your mistakes calmly. They're not angry. They're disappointed in your awareness. Over weeks, something changes. You begin noticing everything. The way someone stands too still. The unnatural rhythm of footsteps behind you. The momentary glance that lingers half a second too long. You're being trained to see layers, and that perception doesn't turn off after class. You catch yourself mapping grocery stores, counting exits in restaurants, tracking movement subconsciously. The most important lesson, however, isn't tactical. It's psychological. Compartmentalization. Separate emotion from action. Separate identity from mission. Separate personal morality from operational responsibility. One instructor says quietly, "You will only survive in this career if you can place parts of yourself into boxes." Nearly 40% of trainees leave. Some are brilliant. Some are physically capable, but they can't split themselves cleanly enough. You stay, not because it's easy, because you adapt. You graduate near the top of your class. They hand you a badge and a cover identity. You hold 2 names in your hand. Your real one, and the one you will sometimes become. You feel accomplished, but you don't yet realize what's forming. Not confidence. Architecture. They are rebuilding your perception of reality. Training is controlled. Real life isn't. And the first time you step into a foreign country, the illusion of control disappears. Chapter 2. First posting your first assignment places you overseas. Officially, you are a political attaché. Unofficially, your job is to understand the undercurrents beneath diplomacy. Embassy life is structured: briefings, meetings, reports. You attend receptions where conversations appear harmless. But your role isn't to socialize. It's to evaluate. You watch how people respond to pressure, who hesitates before answering, who avoids eye contact when certain topics arise, who overcompensates with enthusiasm. At first, the work feels analytical, intellectual, but gradually it becomes instinctual. You start categorizing personalities automatically: ambitious, resentful, disillusioned, opportunistic. You notice patterns civilians miss, and once you see patterns consistently, you begin searching for them everywhere. at dinner with colleagues, during phone calls home, even in conversations with friends. You begin filtering yourself. You simplify stories. You avoid specifics. You choose words carefully, because language matters. Gradually, you realize something subtle but powerful. You are never fully relaxed, even in safe environments. Your brain is always scanning, always processing. You wake up at night replaying conversations. Was that hesitation meaningful? Did that shift in tone signal something deeper? Sleep becomes lighter. You grow quieter. Friends say you seem different. More reserved, more measured. You tell them you're adjusting to workload. But internally, you know the shift is deeper. You are becoming two people. The one who experiences the world, and the one who analyzes it. Diplomatic cover offers protection, a safety net. But some assignments remove that safety net entirely. And that's when identity begins to fracture. Chapter 3. Non-official cover SID. You're offered a different role. No embassy, no diplomatic status, no visible government protection. You will operate under a commercial identity. On paper, you're a consultant. In practice, you are alone. You move to a new city. Apartment leased under your alias. Busyness records built around your cover. You study your new identity until it feels seamless. You memorize details, education history, career trajectory, colleagues. You answer questions fluidly. Repetition builds confidence. Confidence builds familiarity. And familiarity begins to blur lines. You respond to your alias instinctively. You speak about your busyness with ease. At first, it feels like acting, temporary, strategic, but months pass. Then a year, and something unsettling happens. You begin thinking inside the identity. You no longer feel like you're pretending. You feel layered. Real name, cover name, mission self. They coexist, but they do not merge. You develop habits. Scanning reflections in windows. Noticing vehicles that reappear. Avoiding predictable routines. You wake at 3 a.m. and listen. Not because you heard something. Because awareness never sleeps fully anymore. Trust becomes selective. Relationships become complicated. You cannot fully explain your life to anyone. So you share fragments. Controlled fragments. You begin to understand the cost. Not danger. Isolation. You realize something quietly terrifying. If this role ended tomorrow, you wouldn't immediately know how to turn off the mindset. And just as you stabilize under that constant awareness, the environment changes again. Because some roles don't just test identity. They test endurance. Chapter 4. High-risk environments. You don't notice when the shift happens. There is no moment where someone says, "Now things are different." It happens quietly. Assignments become less predictable. Regions become less stable. Decisions begin carrying visible weight. You're deployed into environments where information moves faster than certainty. Political tensions, fragile alliances, rapidly changing realities. You work longer hours. Sleep becomes negotiable. You learn to process information quickly, not emotionally, but strategically. The work demands clarity under pressure. You assess risk. You prioritize outcomes. You communicate recommendations that will influence actions far beyond your field of view. And for the first time, you feel the scale of what intelligence work actually touches, lives. Government's stability. You witness how quickly order can dissolve, how fast narratives can change, how fragile systems truly are. The exposure changes you. You become quieter, more focused, less reactive, not detached, controlled. Emotion gets postponed, filed away, because decisions must happen in real time. You return home after long assignments. Family notices differences. You pause before speaking more often. You listen longer. You weigh responses. You say you're tired. It's not untrue, but it isn't complete either. Because what's really happening is deeper. You're carrying environments most people never experience, and your mind has adapted to function inside them. But the field is not where the transformation peaks. The real shift happens when responsibility changes form. When you stop reacting and start deciding. Chapter 5. Leadership. Years. Time passes faster than you expect. You're no longer the one executing. You're the one supervising, approving, evaluating. You manage teams now. Officers look to you for guidance. You review reports, assessments, and recommendations. You brief senior officials. You understand something few civilians ever see. Information doesn't arrive as truth. It arrives as fragments. Possibilities, patterns. You must interpret, prioritize, decide. And every decision carries consequence. Not always immediate, but real. You begin seeing intelligence as a network rather than isolated missions. Streams of information intersecting across continents. Economic pressures linking to political instability. Local decisions creating global ripple effects. The world becomes layered. You no longer read headlines casually. You see the machinery behind them. You know how much happens outside public awareness. Sleep shortens. Responsibility expands. You miss moments at home. Birthdays, conversations, events you can't return to. Your family understands to a point, but the separation grows. Not from conflict, from absence. The job isn't something you clock into anymore. It's something you inhabit, and it never fully powers down. Eventually, you realize the work is shaping you faster than you're shaping it, and that realization stays with you long after assignments end. Chapter 6. Strategic command years accumulate. Experience becomes authority. You move into senior roles where your decisions influence entire operational directions. You oversee programs, coordinate international efforts, brief policymakers. Your words now help shape strategy. You sit in rooms where conversations never leave the walls. You understand how complex global decisions truly are. No clear heroes. No clear villains. Just competing interests, competing risks, competing outcomes. You learn to navigate ambiguity, to operate without certainty, to make decisions with incomplete information. That mental strain builds slowly. You carry responsibility quietly, because leadership and intelligence rarely looks dramatic. It looks like long hours, constant evaluation, unseen pressure. You develop a habit of pausing before speaking, because words matter more now. They influence direction, priority action. Your personal world grows smaller. Your professional world grows vast. The balance becomes difficult to maintain. And eventually you stop trying to balance it. You focus on function, and then one day, the career you built for decades begins to wind down. But the mindset doesn't. Chapter 7. Retirement. Retirement arrives without spectacle. A quiet ceremony. Colleagues who understand what you carried. A speech about service. A medal placed into a box. It cannot be displayed publicly. Much of your work will never be discussed openly. You return to civilian life. At first, it feels slower, simpler, predictable. But your mind hasn't slowed. You still scan environments instinctively. You still notice patterns in conversation. You still wake at unfamiliar sounds. Habits built over decades don't disappear. They remain. You carry awareness like background noise, constant, subtle, permanent. Friends ask about your career. You give surface answers, general explanations, because the full story cannot be told. Not fully. You begin walking at night sometimes, checking doors, observing quiet streets. Not because something is wrong, because vigilance became normal. You think about the younger version of yourself. The applicant, the curiosity, the excitement. The belief that you were stepping into something bigger. You were right, but the scale wasn't just external, it was internal. You were stepping into a career that would reshape how you see everything, and the real transformation didn't happen during missions. It happened in perception, in how the world started to look different. Layered, fragile. Connected. Chapter 8. The aftermath. Time passes. Years outside the system, but the perspective stays. You notice instability in news others overlook. You recognize patterns in global events. You understand how quickly things can shift. You also understand how much remains unseen. The career gave you purpose, structure, responsibility. But it also required sacrifice. Privacy, simplicity, spontaneity. You became more controlled, more measured, more aware. The world feels quieter now. But your mind is not. You still think strategically, still evaluate possibilities, still imagine outcomes. Because once your brain adapts to that level of awareness, it rarely returns to baseline. You're not the same person who filled out that application. Not better, not worse, changed. Structured differently, somewhere tonight. Someone is sitting in front of a laptop, cursor blinking, application open. They're imagining adventure, purpose, meaning. They don't realize the biggest shift won't happen overseas. It won't happen during assignments. It will happen slowly. Inside them. In how they think, how they trust, how they see the world. And once that transformation begins, there is no clean way back. You don't leave intelligence behind. You carry it. In perception, in instinct, in silence, long after the job ends. If you like content, like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel.